Okay, today we're going to be looking at how to analyze a primary source document, in particular a image. Today we're going to be working with Paul Revere's engraving of the Boston Massacre. So on the formative document, it says for step 1, to study the image for 2 minutes, form an overall opinion of the image, and then examine individual items. The photo is divided into 4 sections. We're going to study each section to see what new details become visible. On this document, we have provided you areas where you can record your answers. So question 2 is, what do you see? This is where you record it. For time's sake, I will not be typing out my answers. I will just be speaking them. As I identify, I will circle or place an arrow next to the areas I'm referencing. So we're going to start with quadrant or section 1. So section 1, I'm going to focus on the most important 1 or 2 details in each quad. I see at the top it says Bloody Massacre. So I'm going to select my pencil tool and I'm going to circle that. This language is very particular. It's trying to make me think that this image is a bloody massacre. It's something very serious and deadly. Quadrant 2 or section 2, I see at the top it says Boston and March 5th. So I know this is happening in the city of Boston. So it's the streets of Boston on March 5th. And notice how I'm not necessarily pulling out every little detail. I mean, I could point that there's buildings, that it's nighttime, but what I'm really focusing on is the most important aspect. It's a bloody massacre, happens in Boston. Quadrant 3, if I look at this, I notice that there's a group of people. These group of people are dressed differently than the group of people in section 4. So I'm going to venture to guess that these are colonists. You have a number of them on the ground bloody. So colonists in this image are being killed. It also looks like they're unarmed. I do not see any weapons on them. Quadrant 4, on the other hand, there are weapons. There are guns here, and this smoke signifies that they're firing. I also see a group of men in red coats, and since we know that the British wore red coats, I'm going to safely assume that these are British soldiers. So after you identify what's important in each quadrant, you would record your answers here for section 2. For the sake of time, we are not going to do that here. Question 3 then asks, what questions does this image raise in your hand? Or I'm sorry, in your mind. So if I look at this, I'm wondering what happened that caused the British to fire on these unarmed civilians, these colonists? What precipitated this? What event caused the soldiers to open fire? When this event happened and news reached England many days, weeks later, what did the people in England think? What did the King of England think, as he was still our sovereign king? What did the loyalists, those people loyal to the crown in the colonies, think? I mean, we do not see ourselves as Americans yet. We still see ourselves as Englishmen. So many people are loyal to the crown. When they see this image, when they hear about the Boston Massacre, what do they think? Are there any connections to today that we can think of? One of those connections I think about is this is a snapshot of history. This is one viewpoint. It has a bias. It creates a certain narrative of this historical event. Could we perhaps look at this today when we see small videos from cell phones on Facebook? Perhaps we could compare this to questions of excessive force used by police. As we see in this image, soldiers are being shown firing upon unarmed citizens. So these are all questions I have. Question 4 then asks, what's the point of view of the creator? Whenever we see a historical document, be it a text or an image or a political cartoon, there's a point of view. There's a bias here. Paul Revere was a patriot. I know that as a history teacher, but if you look at this picture, you can clearly see that Paul Revere is making the British look negative. He's showing them opening fire on these unarmed citizens. Why would he do that? Why would he create an image that makes the British look bad? Well, he's anti-British. He is a patriot. So this is how you can very quickly look at an image, divide it up, and figure out the historical narrative that it's trying to tell you. Once again, below is the areas where you could record your answers, but for the sake of time, I did not do that. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments or email them to me.